Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar focusing on meeting new advanced estimating for Construction Online 2020. I'm Holly Gibson, Product Specialist here at UDA Technologies. I'm joined by my colleague Jordan Davis.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And we are excited to introduce our brand new advanced estimating for Construction Online to you guys today.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We are so excited. We have really tried to keep this feature under wraps. We have a very, very long and storied history with developing best-in-class estimating tools for you all, and man, we are so excited to show off what we're bringing to the table in Construction Online today.
Now, for anyone who is new to UDA Technologies, a little bit of background information about us. So this is our 20th anniversary year. We've been doing this for 20 years, really providing best-in-class tools for construction professionals just like you. And so our product family, of course, includes Construction Online 2020, which we'll be taking a look at today, along with our desktop software, ConstructionSuite, cloud services for hosting your QuickBooks and other desktop programs, contract packages. I know so many of you have gotten started with us that way over the years. So if you're new to what we do here at UDA, we're really focused on serving the construction industry and have been doing that for the last 20 years. And one of the things that we've really always been known for during the course of that time really is estimating, those best-in-class estimating tools. And there is a reason for that. One of the things that the founder of our company says frequently is a successful project has to start with a successful estimate. A profitable project is going to have to start with a detailed estimate. And so that's always been something that's been a core focus. And I'm really excited to introduce to you guys today in Construction Online, our fastest growing platform, grown to serve, almost 700,000 of you guys all over the world. Some of the lessons that we've learned over the years and some of the things that really make UDA stand out from an estimating standpoint, and show you what we've done with that in Construction Online.
Speaking of what we've done over the years, I don't want to pull the focus too far away from what we are about to show off, but Holly actually was speaking with a brand new client this morning. They're not brand new to UDA, but they are new to Construction Online. But they've used ConstructionSuite for at least since I think like 2009. And they reached a point where they were using the estimating system in ConstructionSuite and were really looking to move to a cloud-based platform to actually share and communicate project information in virtual real time to everybody on their team. But they looked and they just could not find a system that handled the way that they built their estimates and the way that they built budgets for their projects until this morning, because they actually did not know that this estimating feature was live in the platform today. So when I pointed them in that direction, they said, "Oh, this is it. We can finally get started with building out these projects." This is something that our existing clients have been excited for a while, and I really think that this estimating update is really going to allow companies to build the level of detail into their estimates in an organized way that is really going to help avoid guesstimating or leaving information out of a project's budget.
And I think it definitely will. That extra amount of detail is really what we're focusing on for advanced estimating in Construction Online 2020. So I know that many of you have been successfully using estimating in Construction Online to build your estimates, build budgets for the projects that you're working on. And so if you're used to doing that, you'll know that those estimates have two layers of detail. And what we'll look at today with our advanced estimating, one of the biggest differences, of course, is going to be that third or additional layer of detail for you. Now, of course, we're taking a look at my account, and to jump in and start looking at some of these estimates, I know you guys can't wait to see what that looks like, and we definitely can't wait to show that off. We'll actually just jump into one of my existing projects. So we have a couple of really nice estimates already built out for you to take a look just structurally at how that's going to present. So to jump into an estimate, of course, each estimate is going to need to have a project that it's associated with. So we'll dive into my Baldwin Park project here and then jump in and just take a look at the estimate that we have associated with this particular project. Now, one of the things that you'll see as this loads up for us is that the estimates associated with these advanced estimates are typically going to be a little bit bigger. So you're going to see, because of that additional detail, you're going to see a lot more lines, a lot more items. And so really that calls for a different type of organization, which is what you'll start to see here today.
Yeah, so those of you familiar with the ConstructionOnline estimate will immediately notice that there's a huge difference here across the bottom of the estimate itself. Not only are we landing on a new page, a project totals page, but we also have a few different tabs along the spreadsheet at the bottom here. Now, we're going to talk more about what these items represent in a moment. First, we really need to take a look at the project totals page itself. Now, we're looking at 2 levels of detail right now. Now, tucked inside of each one of these sections, we'll see the actual line items that make up these different subcategories in a moment. But just to give you a general overview, the project totals page is going to show you a roll-up or a summary view of not only the totals for each category in your estimate, like the planning here, but you'll also see the roll-up totals of both the base cost and also the contract price for all of the subcategories that make up the main category as well.
Exactly. And as you work your way down the sheet, so of course, if you've been using estimating in ConstructionOnline, this project totals page that we're looking at here is very close to what you have already been working with, these top 2 layers of detail here. And one thing to note is that isn't going anywhere for some of those maybe smaller jobs where you still want to maybe do a simplified or more of a summary estimate view. That's still going to be available to you. But for those projects that require a little bit more detail, that's where, as you kind of navigate through the estimate, you'll be able to jump in and see that. Now, a couple of things before I dive into one of these category sheets that I always like to point out is that when we kind of look at how to get around and how to look at the information that you've got in front of you, there's a couple of things that are going to make it really easy to see what you have. So you have this information rolled up here. You'll also notice that you have the information here in this sidebar here on the right. I think of this as an inline report. So if we need to see really quickly how our costs break down by individual categories or maybe across different classes or resources that we've assigned, you're able to see that information here. You have, of course, your dashboard here at the top. So if you want to take a look at maybe how your estimate breaks down or how much you've got in allowances or change orders side by side with your estimate, you're able to see that information here. And then of course, as you're looking at the estimate sheet itself, you're going to be able to see that for each of these subcategories. And then to dive in and see a little more detail, maybe we want to look at framing a little bit more closely. We'll just click on that subcategory. It'll dive us right in, and you'll notice as well that now I'm on this tab here at the bottom for framing.
Now, what we're looking at is actually inside of the framing category. As we mentioned before, we're able to break out and detail out maybe the different items that make up the floor system materials package. This gives us a lot of control over the individual items that we are adding into the estimate, and later on we'll be able to track and see not only how much these different materials cost for us, but we can actually track on an individual basis if we wanted to, how much we've spent for these different items. It really gives you and your team, whoever's building your estimates, whether that's yourself or if you have an estimating team, the ability to build very detailed, very specific estimates that align to whatever the project needs may be. This is also going to be very, very useful when you're trying to build out different reports or maybe generate a sheet for purchases. This level of detail really gives you that information without having to compromise on a simple system that organizes the information for you. By giving you the ability to drill down into the categories to see these line item details, you're really making a workable system that is easy to interpret and is easy to see for anyone involved on the project, whether that's the upper level management for your company or maybe just yourself trying to get an idea like where are we on our budget for framing specifically.
Exactly. Usually, there are going to be sort of 2 phases that you're working with here. One would be, the estimate creation, where we're really putting together the estimate, we're costing everything out. The rest is the construction of the project, where you're going to reference back to that estimate over and over again as a budget, as a reference when you're creating things like change orders. So you want it to be equally as useful in both of those cases. Now, before we go too much further, one thing that I do want to show you guys is that when you're dealing with so much information, one of the things that I really love about Construction Online Advanced Estimating is that full screen mode. So we'll go ahead and select that. There are actually a couple of different options for you to just be able to navigate and take advantage of some of the not only some of the information that you've got, but with how you want to view that on your screen or how you like to work with that data. So full screen is definitely a great way to just take up a little bit more of that screen space, be able to see more information. You can hide this information on the right. So if you want to take even more room here to be able to work with more financial data, you can. And if there are certain columns maybe that you like to use or not use on a regular basis, you can always choose which columns are going to show. You can rearrange these, move them up and down if you wanted those to appear in a different order. You can even change the size of these. So if you want it to maybe display but want it to be a little bit smaller, you can do that here. So tons of great options in terms of how you view information as you're putting that together for your estimate.
Yeah, now we do have a few default column views loaded into the system. The one that we're looking at right now, you might have seen in the drop-down menu, is the advanced estimate. But the really interesting thing about these views, just like the two-level estimates that we've offered, you can customize each column view to maintain the columns on your own account. So you can really customize the estimate to work on in both a mode for estimating the cost for the project or building out an estimate to then spin off into a proposal. Or you can set it up so that you're looking at a budget reference sheet. So you can see all of the information that you would need to be successful from a daily basis, and it's all contained on your own account, so you can really make it your own.
Definitely. Now, with what we're looking at here, the advanced estimate, it's really called advanced for a reason. So this gives you the ability to dive in and track a lot of information on an individual line item basis. So previously, you would have been tracking this information on that subcategory basis. So by expanding down into the line items, you can be more granular with not only how you track the costs, but how you track the way that those costs break down. So you'll notice that for each of my line items here, I'm able to do things like enter in notes. If we wanted to add some notes to this item, we can do that right here. We're able to assign it a classification, so you can do a breakdown within each of those subcategories to represent what you're spending on material versus labor versus equipment rental or whatever else you need to track here. Of course, you'll notice that within my floor system materials, for example, we have a lot of different types of lumber and sizes of lumber that we might be using. One of the advantages that you get with this type of setup is that what we would really recommend that you do is, you can, especially for things that are going to have a fixed unit cost or one that you feel good about predicting, you can certainly build out those line items, save that into your estimate template. Jordan and I really like to encourage people to use estimate templates. That way you have your list of possible items. You can go through and update the quantities, check to make sure the costs look good, but you're not going to forget anything. You can make sure that within each of these subcategories, you can list out the items that you might typically use and be able to use that in a really efficient way from a template perspective and go through and build out not only an estimate very quickly, but very accurately as well.
Mm-hmm. And another addition to the advanced estimate, because we're now giving the ability to track and build out line items, is also the item units column or the unit column inside of Construction Online. Now, as you can see, there are a number of different units already loaded into the system. Ollie, if I'm correct, I think at some point, either now or in the future, we'll be able to edit this list as well to add your own custom units, right?
That's right. So, we've provided some units for you, but you are able to edit those yourself. So, that's something that if you... hopefully we've covered all the bases for you, right? But in many cases, I know for some of you guys out there who are really doing specialty work, the types of units that we provide may be a little more general than you need. So you can always just come to this drop down here in the top right, choose Edit Custom Units, and just like many of the customizable drop downs that we offer for you. This gives you the ability to come in and either get rid of the ones that you don't need, make it a little bit easier for your team, or add ones that are a bit more specific to you. I think we've got most of the general bases covered, but again, you can come in and adjust this however you like.
Yeah, we might not be able to pick out the specific measurement that you use, but hey, we don't really have to, because this system is designed for you. It's for you to really make your own.
Exactly. Now, of course, as we're tracking those unit costs and units for these individual line items, know that you can just simply enter a base cost for those as well. So just like with the estimating that you've been used to in Construction Online, one of the unique things about the way that Construction Online estimates work, both 2-level and 3-level, is what we think of as that triangle method of estimating, where when we look at a quantity, a unit cost, and a base cost, if we know 2 of those values, we can figure the other one out for you. So base cost, of course, is always going to be your quantity times your unit cost, but if you just want to enter a lump sum base cost and give it a quantity of 1, that's fine as well. So you can really go into a lot of granular detail for those items or sections that demand it. But for places where you don't really need that, it's okay. You can still enter in just your lump sum base cost the way you would otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And then moving beyond the cost, we have absolutely maintained the ability to add line item markups to the actual line items as well. Now, again, before, this is going to be a really similar function to the 2-level estimates, in that the subcategories, or the items in the 2-level estimates, we're given a markup and a markup type. So just like that, inside of the 3-level estimates, you can add a per line item markup and choose the markup type, whether it's a % markup, a flat dollar markup, or a dollar per unit markup, which really could come into play once you have built out maybe an actual estimate that's using both the units, quantities, unit costs, and a per unit markup as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, just like with your 2-level estimates on Construction Online, the advanced 3-level estimates do give you the ability to come back and hide sections that you're not using. So you can build out a very extensive, comprehensive estimate template, go through and fill that out, and when you're done, come back and hide the sections that you're not using, so that what you're really looking at moving forward is just relevant information for that project.
Now, this approach is absolutely a best practice. It's much, much easier to forget to add something to an estimate than it is to simply hide the rows. I'll tell you, it's much easier to build the estimate, run through the actual template as a checklist, and then hide the pieces you don't need. Remembering to add in a line is much more difficult than it is to just click the button.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I see a lot of great questions coming in, so we'll try to get to as many of these as we can as we're going through the estimate. So now that we've taken a look at the structure, we will take a moment and start from scratch, kind of show you how you could build this out, or some of your options for getting information into the estimating tool. A lot of great questions about the different tabs that we have available, wanting to maybe look at some of these sections, or know if, for example, maybe these can be imported in. So we actually had a client who wanted to see the HVAC sheet. So this particular estimate that we're looking at right now is just a residential master template. So it's designed for a whole home build. One of the things that we're able to provide are some templates, though, that would address different really specific needs. So elsewhere in Construction Online, I've got some other example projects to show you. My Summit project here is actually just going to use like a standard CSI division, 16 division template. So that's going to look just a little bit different than our Baldwin Park here. This one is divided more so into those standard 16 divisions that many of you are familiar with, and I know a lot of you guys really like to estimate this way. So with this one, each of my categories or tabs here at the bottom is just representing one of those 16 divisions. And you'll notice for this one as well that the subcategories are pretty specific. So as we go through my template here, I've chosen not to list out every line item, but just rather give my estimator a place to come in and fill in, okay, for temporary electricity, what's that going to be, put in a cost, and then keep moving. So you can really structure this in a couple of different ways. One thing to note too is that when we're going to create a new estimate, you'll be presented with some choices really about how we want to do that. Now, of course, one of them is going to be importing. So we've had a lot of questions today coming in about the ability to import estimates. And so you can definitely import from Excel. There's even an area here for you to download an Excel sheet with the template that you'll need to be able to transfer data into ConstructionOnline estimating. It's super easy to do. I've actually got a ton of Excel templates I've been importing in over the last couple of weeks getting ready for this session. So I can definitely attest that that's an easy thing to do. You can also choose a template. So once you get your information imported in, or maybe grab one of those templates from me, feel free to reach out to me after the webinar. I'll be happy to send one over. But you pull those in, and then you're able to, of course, choose the template that you want to use. So maybe I want to use a light commercial master, or for my customer who is asking about HVAC, maybe you would want to go with more of like a mechanical master that's a little bit more fleshed out on that side of things. So depending on the type of work that you do, you can definitely have different templates set up for different types of jobs, or even if you just do a couple of different variations of very similar things, if it's beneficial for you, you can definitely make multiple templates to use and pull them in that way. Or of course you can always create an estimate from scratch, which is just going to be, give you a blank estimate structure to fill out. We'll show you how this works today so you can see what that looks like, see how easy it is to enter information in. But all of these options are going to be available for you.
And whether you're starting from a completely new advanced estimate, or if you're starting from a template, we've worked really hard to make the interface really, really simple and easy to use. We've added in a lot of keyboard shortcuts. You'll notice that pressing Enter or holding Shift and then pressing Enter again will actually move the selection up or down based on whatever you're working on inside of your estimate. We've also made sure that we have tab support so you can quickly move around the estimate without needing to move the mouse at all. Once you get into a rhythm, or you get into almost a pattern of working inside of an estimate, everything needs to flow naturally, and I think our team has done a great job at making sure that the keyboard shortcuts work well inside of the estimate. There's also a few other keyboard shortcuts, Holly, that we might not be showing off today, but I know that there's some pretty neat things that you can do to pull open the note sheet. I think in one case, we could maybe put together a list and share with our attendees today, because there's some things that can really boost your productivity if you take the time to memorize them.
Definitely. For any of you guys who are heavy keyboard users, right? So when I watch people work, sometimes people really go for the mouse most of the time, and then there are some people that like to put the mouse aside and work as much as possible off of the keyboard and those shortcuts. And if that's you, we definitely have built-in options to make sure that it's keyboard friendly. One of the advantages to using ConstructionOnline estimating, for those of you who are thinking of switching over, is that most people, when they're switching, are coming from some sort of Excel-based format. And so even though we want to provide you really with much more functionality than you can get from Excel, and build this estimate as part of an integrated system that's really going to see you through to the successful completion, right, of your project. So there's so many advantages. We also want it to feel familiar. If you're used to working with Excel, then we've tried to make sure that those keyboard shortcuts are there, and that it's easy to get around and navigate, and that it feels very natural for you to use. So you'll notice that I've just created a brand new estimate blank and started from scratch here with just a blank estimate, really. So I've got a blank canvas. We can come in at this point and begin adding information. So if we needed to build this out, if for some reason you needed to come in and maybe it's a new type of job that you haven't done before, or you want to just get familiar by coming in and building an estimate out, we'll head back to our full screen mode here. But you'll notice a couple of things as we go over each of these categories. Of course, if we click here, it's going to take me into that sheet. But if we want to edit, then I can just click the pencil and go ahead and start typing in. If we need to add additional subcategories here, so maybe this is going to be our design services, maybe we'll add in drawings. Definitely we'll need to add some permits. And then maybe we'll add in a couple of other items here as well. So we'll just call this item 1, item 2.
Going into hyperdrive.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Although I guess that's inaccurate. Those are subcategories, not items. But then we can just jump into that sheet and flesh out those details. So you can see that it's really fast and easy actually to go in and begin working with your estimates very quickly. As you're putting things together, maybe this category 2 here is going to be demolition. So if you want to work off of that first page, you can, but many people like to go through the different tabs and work that way. So again, really easy to go in and rename things right here on the sheet, define what these subcategories and items are going to be. If we need to add new information, of course, you can come back to your first page to do that, but you also have, again, many of those shortcuts. If I need to create several new categories, we can just make 4 or 5 of them here and then go in and rename these and keep going.
Yeah, and if you are working and let's say that you are setting up your estimate and you forget that you put something out of order, it's actually pretty easy to readjust the order of your categories as well. You can actually take the tab at the bottom and drag and reposition the categories as needed. That will also update the project totals page as well. It's a very fast update.
It is very fast update, very quick and easy to come in and really do some of that organization. Now, go ahead, Jordan.
Well, I was going to say, we haven't touched on it yet, but now that we can actually see the tabs across the bottom of a new estimate, I noticed that a few people have been asking about change orders, and some people have asked about allowances or selections as well. And now that you can actually see the tabs in the estimate, well, we can kind of reveal what is actually inside of those tabs, because in the older 2-level estimates, you would need to move to a very specific place to actually build out your client selections or to add change orders into the system. Now, of course, there was a shortcut for change orders specifically to link back into the estimate itself, but we've built in a brand new interface to quickly build out the structure of your selections, and also a very fast way to enter new change orders into the estimate itself.
Yeah, that's right. So a common question that people will have when they're putting together the estimate is, how does that work in conjunction with allowances?
Mm-hmm.
How do we account for those allowance items while we're building the estimate? And previously, those two sections talk to each other, but you couldn't always see the allowance amounts right on the estimate except in a summary. And so we've actually given you an entire sheet in your advanced estimate to be able to see those allowance amounts and selections as you're building the estimate, and of course as you're managing the estimate. And certainly that is a part of putting together the estimate or budget for any project. There usually will be times where we need to assign a line item, but the client has not made a final choice about what they want. We see this a lot on residential and light commercial work where maybe finishes are being chosen, or specifics of things like flooring or appliance packages are being chosen. And so we want to be able to account for those in such a way that really sets up the client to be able to choose that within the portal and have those allowance amounts managed. So you'll notice now the selections tab. So every estimate or advanced estimate in ConstructionOnline 2020 are going to have some things of course, that you can customize, but every one of them structurally is going to be organized much the same way. The first page is always going to be your project totals. Your category tabs are always going to come next and be effectively what makes up the meat or middle of that estimate. And at the very end, you're always going to have 3 tabs. You'll have a selections tab, a company overhead and margin tab, and then your change order tab. So with your selection sheet, this just means that we could go ahead and begin to build out those allowance amounts when we're building the estimate, and then we can come back later and maybe add the individual choices or some beautiful photographs and things that will go into our client portal. But for budget purposes, we'll be able to build that out right here.
And it works almost exactly like the other pieces of the estimate. You can actually see the selection categories themselves, which gives you the ability to organize the different major groupings of selections for the project. And then, of course, underneath that, you'll have the selection subcategories or selections themselves. And then later on, you'll be able to add the choices back into those selections for the clients to choose.
And you can really build out your entire structure here. And so these can represent any sort of categorization or grouping that you would want. I'm choosing to do mine kind of based on finish perhaps. So we'll do electrical finishes next, or electrical fixtures here. So we'll just add in our selection category, and then we'll start adding in those individual selection options.
You can see there's a few different options, right? For things like a due date, the allowance amount is actually going to load back in to the selections sheet inside of the estimate itself. And from that point, we can actually see the different status pulling into the sheet as well. It's a really great reference sheet. This is something that is brand new to the platform. We really think it's going to give those companies who are dealing with the tall task of managing a large selection set or even a small selection set a much easier way to view the status of each selection, the allowance that was given to the client, and also how much has been approved from the actual choice. So it makes balancing the budget much easier.
That's right. So of course what we're looking at right now is kind of as we're building that selection sheet and entering in those allowance amounts. Of course, as the client comes in and really begins making some of those choices, we want to be able to reference that, so you can always come back and look at that information to be able to see things like the status. Is it still pending? Has it been approved? You can see, are we over or under budget? And of course, those are all going to come right back to your actual client selection section. So this isn't two separate places to manage your selection. It's just one more place to see the same data or information. So if we come over to my client selections area under my financials tab here, you'll see that the selections we just created for flooring and electrical fixtures are right here, and they're ready for me to add more detail. Again, some of those pictures, some of those specs, maybe use the selection picker tool to pull that off of some of those vendor websites. So still super easy to go in and create those selections and add that additional information. But I think much easier for the estimators to build out that allowance sheet from the very beginning as a holistic part of the estimate. Now, not only is that true, of course, for selections, but that's also something that you'll see for change orders as well. The ability to add those change orders and see the change orders from that change order tab on your estimate sheet.
Now, this estimate doesn't have any change orders, so there's not really a summary to load, but if we did need to go ahead and build our first change order for the estimate itself, well, the change order system inside of ConstructionOnline is going to handle that perfectly fine. You can see from this point we're actually going to be adding a new change order to this project. And then you'll see much of the new updates throughout ConstructionOnline 2020 are finding their way across the platform. We have a space to add in and maybe tie together to a cost code. Some of the more important components of this change order would be things like the approval due date, which is going to then notify those responsible parties for approving the change order in an email if we decided to make that change order available from this point. But it really does make it not only the creation of a change order much more efficient because you can build it directly from the estimate itself, but it also makes it easier to reference later on when the change order is actually added to the platform. Another nice note here, we've added in the unit field to the change order itself, so you can take that same custom unit that you might have set up before or one of our pre-existing units and track that as part of the cost of the change order as well.
Now you'll notice that all of the options available for creating change orders from your estimate are of course available, the same ones that are going to be available going to the change order module. So again, depending on how you work day to day, how your team works day to day. I know that, different people may be responsible for building those change orders, and that's fine. They can still come just to this section if they'd rather do that. But of course, you can also build that right on the estimate. And as you're coming through and maybe reviewing the budget, you might realize, oh gosh, okay, we need to do a change order for this, and be able to do that very quickly. And again, have all those same options available for you here that you're used to in that change order module. We'll keep this as pending approval, and you'll notice that now under my pending change order section, I do have that lighting upgrade change order. And then of course we can just go in and actually mark that as approved if maybe we've already gotten a prior approval from our client, or when they go into their portal and mark that as approved, then we'll be able to see that kind of right away update the status for us.
Yeah, it does a great job of summarizing the information from the change order view from an estimating or a budget standpoint, as opposed to actually building a change order that's designed to be easy to approve, easy to review from a project owner or investor standpoint.
Exactly. So it looks like as we've gone through kind of the bulk of getting around the new advanced estimating, creating those advanced estimates, and of course managing your selection sheets, allowance amounts, and change orders, that we've had a ton of great questions coming in. I love when you guys keep Sydney busy as we're going through these sessions. So we'll take just a moment to review some of these and make sure we get to touch on some of them before we wrap up today. One thing I can see is that several people have asked if they could have some of the different templates that they've seen on my screen here. So absolutely, if any of you guys would like to receive a copy of a template, feel free to just send us over a chat. If you've already done so, we'll review those afterwards, or just feel free to reach out to me. So we do have these available for import to really get you a great head start in working with the new advanced estimating tool. So I'd be happy to send those your way. Bear with me just a moment. You guys have really asked some great questions, and a ton of them, right? Yeah, I see some more template questions. Okay, so it looks like we also have a couple of questions just about reports and proposals. So you definitely will still be able to make proposals for your client as well using the new advanced estimating tool. There are a couple of reports that are not yet available for the advanced 3-level estimates here, so bear with us as we continue to bring more and more of those report options your way. But you can definitely go in and create detailed proposals or summary proposals. And one thing that we know as you kind of go through and start to create those is that definitely nice to be able to have the option to go ahead and choose different levels of detail. So when you're making that proposal, you may want to show the client everything, which is great. You'll have the ability to do that. You may not. What we see a lot of times is what's best for estimating internally is a detailed estimate that you can really create an accurate, fleshed out estimate, have a great idea of the cost. Often what's best for job costing is to kind of pull it up just by maybe one level. You might not always need to job cost at the individual piece of lumber level, but do want to do that on more of those subcategories to make sure that the budget is staying healthy. And then in many cases with the client, the end goal is to be able to provide them with a comprehensive list of what's included without giving them a price breakdown for each little thing. So we give you those options and more. So if you come in and are ready to create an estimate proposal, you'll be able to choose the level of detail. And so this is just going to help us understand how much detail we want to include on the estimate for the actual items, not the prices, but just the items themselves. Do we want to show all the line items? Do we want to show maybe just categories and subcategories? So you'll be able to choose that here. Then of course you'll choose the price detail, which could just be the contract total, could be categories, a breakdown by categories. Again, you can go all the way down to the line item if you like. And then based on these choices, you'll have some additional options in terms of, maybe do we want to prorate out our overhead and margin? Do we want to show a quantity and unit cost with some of these? So you'll be able to make tons of choices here. You also have the simple or summary estimate proposal, which basically just takes the information that you've put into the estimate and prints it out in a summary view. So with this one, it's just going to give you everything, and then, kind of what you do with it from there is up to you.
Yeah, what I found working with clients pretty extensively to help them fine-tune their proposals is that really more options is better. One proposal might work very well for one type of client that you're working with, whereas another potential project that you might be trying to land would require a very different set of information provided to that potential client. So it really is important for us to give you the control over the proposals, and we think we've done a great job with the current reports that we have now. Stay tuned, though, as we continue to build on what we have to offer today. You will see new reports coming online for the 3-level or the advanced estimates here in the coming weeks. It's something that we are probably working on right now, if I had to guess.
Definitely. So a couple of things that we are working on right now is additional reporting options. We know that you guys love reports. Some of the things that you might see in the financial report section new over the last couple of months will be additional reports for selections and change orders. Many of those have already shown up in your portal to be able to come in and do different reporting here. The same will be true for the advanced estimate, where you'll begin to see additional reports. It looks like we've had a lot of great questions today as well about QuickBooks integration and whether or not that's something that will be available soon. And the answer is a definite yes. So QuickBooks integration is something that as of today is not yet available with your advanced estimates, but will be very soon. We know that that's definitely on the radar for many of you, so that'll be something available here soon.
Yeah, so, and to comment on the QuickBooks integration, the QuickBooks integration has almost been woven into the fabric of our estimates in some ways. We've heard feedback from thousands and thousands of clients over the years that we really handle accounting integrations better than anyone else that they've worked with. We really understand it inside and out, and trust us, it is something that is going to be available soon.
Definitely. Now, there have also been, speaking of availability, there have been a ton of questions, and it looks like Sydney has been able to respond individually to each one of you. However, just to address, many people have asked, so when is this going to be available for me within my ConstructionOnline account? And the answer is today. So that is something that is this is already available to you. And generally, if you already have estimates in ConstructionOnline, you will need to make a new estimate to see that advanced estimate option. But that is something that is available to everyone right away.
Yeah, so if you are really looking forward to building out your advanced estimate templates, or if you want to import the ones that we've mentioned a few times today, you can start doing that right now. If you will reach out to us as soon as the webinar is wrapped up, we'd be more than happy to send the templates your way and make sure that you are off to the races.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a great question as well. It looks like a couple of recent questions coming in about, again, many of those questions about templates. So I think I know what my first order of business will need to be this afternoon. So we'll make sure to reach out. Also a great question about metric or imperial system options from a couple of our international clients. And so you can definitely have that. Of course, as many of you know, one of the things that is really outstanding and unique about ConstructionOnline's estimating software is that for those of you who are located outside of the United States, your account settings can be adjusted to really reflect your location wherever you are in the world. We support over 120 different countries and currency options within your estimate, so you're always going to see that number formatting and those symbols to be local to you. The unit section can be either imperial or metric units, and that's something that is, of course, completely customizable. So great question, and definitely something that is fully supported there. Well,
I was going to say, someone had asked a question earlier, Holly, about creating a change order without an estimate. I know the main focus today was really showing off the highlight item, which is the estimate itself, but to answer that question, yes, if you make a change order inside of a project without an estimate, one, it absolutely will still work and save, and you can have that change order approved. I don't know how this would even be possible, but maybe you're just in a pinch and you absolutely have to get this change order approved, and you're just now building out, maybe you're bringing the estimate into Construction Online for the first time, or you're adapting it to the 3-level estimate. Yeah, absolutely. Not only is that going to function just fine inside of the project, but it should be just fine inside of the estimate itself once you have the estimate online, because it's just pulling the information across from the change order system into the estimate itself.
Yeah, definitely. Great question. Same is true for your selection or allowance sheet. I know that many of you will work with clients very closely one-on-one very early in a project to make some of those initial selections about finished choices or packages that they may be interested in. So depending on, again, the type of work that you're doing, I've worked with many of you out there who are really doing that really early on, maybe even before you're building out some of the other details of your estimate, and that won't hurt anything at all. You can definitely come in and build out that selection sheet or that allowance sheet first and then add the estimate to that, so those can be done independently, even though they're really going to form a whole financial picture for you of the project. Another great question, the new estimate, will that work with inside opportunities or in that sales management section? So it definitely will. A couple of other places where you'll see the new estimating, one would be within your opportunities in sales management. So for these potential projects, you may want to, of course, build out an estimate, and that's going to be available for you within your opportunities as well. And your template management will be available within your template section as well. So when you head to your company projects and your template section there, you will be able to create estimate templates with these advanced estimates as well. Perfect. Well, I think that about covers us for today, and I hope that covers most of your questions. Sydney has done an outstanding job. Looks like most of these have been answered directly. So I think that wraps us up. Before we close out, a couple of reminders about things that we have coming up. So in addition to brand new advanced estimating in Construction Online 2020, one of the things that we'll also be introducing is a brand new and improved Construction Online mobile app. So our mobile development team has been hard at work enhancing your mobile experience. So on Thursday of this week, so in 2 days, we will have a workshop and session really focused on showing you the brand new Construction Online mobile app and really letting you see that mobile view. And then the following week, we will dive back into our Lunch and Learn series, Jordan, with a session on time tracking.
Yeah, we are really excited, and we hope that you'll join us both in 2 days to really dive into how to use Construction Online on a mobile device. We really think this is going to be a tremendous tool for your field teams, superintendents, site foremen, supervisors, anyone who interacts with a project in a boots-on-the-ground standpoint, or yourself if you're doing a site walk or you're visiting with a client to maybe take photos and document exactly what they want you to do. We've really put a ton of work recently into continually improving the mobile app and the interface, and we really think that work is paying off. We'd love to show you all of the changes, all the enhancements, and we're also really looking forward to talking with you about best practices with the cost codes and notes features that will be coming online inside of time tracking. Now, cost codes are there, notes are new. We have some pretty interesting expansions for that. Time tracking is really growing into a powerhouse feature. We'd love to show you best practices, things to consider, and how we've already seen our clients using the time tracking functionality for great success to really keep up with what their teams are up to and how they are actually budgeting and spending their time, how productive they are. So if you'd like to register, if you're here, we really hope that you will. Head over to udatechnologies.com/events and register for the upcoming webinars.
Here you'll also find recordings of all of our recent sessions to dive into. If you've missed any of these have been great workshops to cover things like the plan room, some of the initial information on time tracking, workshops on how to do scheduling and how to do reporting. So this is a treasure trove of great information. So those recordings are always available for you here as well. Until next time, though, we want to just say thank you again to everyone who took some time out of your afternoon to join us today. We were excited to see you here and hope to see you at the next one.
Yeah, thank you all again for spending your afternoon with us. Hopefully we'll be talking to you soon. I have a feeling that some of you will be getting in touch for those estimate templates that we mentioned a few times. But if we don't hear from you again, we hope that you have a fantastic weekend. We hope that you continue to find success, and well, thank you for joining.